Daniel, please pick up. I was standing in the women's emergency bathroom with one hand pressed between my legs and the other shaking so hard I almost dropped my phone. There was blood on my fingers, not a little. Enough to make my vision blur, enough to drag every old fear back into my throat. I was 11 weeks pregnant after 2 losses, and all I could think was, not again, not again, not again. When he finally answered, all I heard first was noise, silverware, laughter, music, people talking over each other. "Ava?" he said, low and annoyed, like I had interrupted something important. "Why are you calling me 5 times? I'm bleeding," I whispered. "I'm at St. Mary's. I need you." His voice changed fast, smooth and practiced. Okay, babe, don't panic. I'm in the middle of something, but I'll come as soon as I can. Just breathe. Let the doctors check you first." Then he added softer, "And don't start imagining the worst." I heard him pull the phone away. I should have said something else. I should have hung up. But I was already crying, and for one stupid second, I thought maybe he was telling someone he had to leave because his wife needed him. Instead, I heard him laugh. Not a nervous laugh. Not a scared laugh. A real one. Warm. Easy. Familiar. Then Lauren's voice floated through the speaker, my best friend's voice. "Did she buy it?" Daniel snorted. "She always does." Everything inside me went still. Even the panic. Even the pain. I couldn't move. Lauren lowered her voice, but not enough. "She said she's bleeding?" "Yeah," he said. "Honestly, if she miscarries again, it'll make this whole thing easier. I just need her calm long enough to sign the equity transfer tomorrow." I stopped breathing. Lauren gave a little sigh. "You are a terrible person. But you still love me," he said. She laughed, and the sound was so intimate, so comfortable, it felt like a knife sliding in slow. "Not as much as I'll love living in that house once this is over." My knees nearly gave out. My grandmother's house. The only home I had ever known. The house Daniel swore he loved because it made me feel safe. The house Lauren used to call storybook perfect. The house they were talking about like it was already theirs. And then Daniel said the one thing that split my life clean in half. "She's alone, she's emotional, and she still thinks a baby will fix us. One signature, Lauren, that's all I need. After that, she can cry to whoever she wants." I wish the call had ended there. I really do. Because what I heard next was worse. Warren asked almost casually, "And if she notices the paperwork doesn't say refinance?" "She won't," Daniel said. "Not if she's as foggy as she's been. Switching those vitamins worked better than I thought." A nurse banged on the door. "Ava, we need you now." I stared at my phone like it had turned into fire. Daniel was still talking. Lauren was still there. My husband and my best friend. My baby. My house. My body. My mind. All of it suddenly felt like a room I no longer owned. I ended the call with a thumb that didn't feel like mine. When I came out of the bathroom, the nurse reached for my arm because I was visibly swaying. "Sweetheart, sit down before you fall." I sat, but my mind was not in that hospital anymore. It was back in my kitchen where Lauren stirred soup on Sundays while Daniel kissed my forehead. It was in the nursery drawer where I had folded a tiny yellow onesie after our last appointment. It was in my grandmother's bedroom where she died holding my hand and told me, "Never let anyone love you like they own you." I hadn't listened. I met Daniel 6 months after my grandmother passed away. I was 28, lonely in a way that made noise feel dangerous, and drowning in probate forms, leaking pipes, and the kind of grief that turned even daylight gray. He showed up at a fundraiser hosted by a mutual friend, offered to help fix the back porch railing when he heard where I lived, and looked at me like I was something fragile worth protecting. He knew exactly how to speak to a woman who had just lost the person who raised her. Lauren had been in my life longer. College roommate. Maid of honor. Keeper of my worst secrets. The person who held me when I had my first miscarriage in the bathroom floor of our first apartment. If you had asked me that morning who would betray me first, I would have laughed at the question. I trusted them in different ways, but completely. One was the love of my life. The other was the witness to it. But trust can make a woman deaf. It can explain away anything. Daniel staying late at work. Daniel snapping when bills came up. Lauren texting him because she was helping plan my birthday. Daniel insisting I stop handling the finances because stress was bad for the pregnancy. Daniel handing me my vitamins every night with a kiss and a glass of water. At the hospital, the ultrasound tech didn't smile while she worked, and that silence nearly killed me. Then she turned the monitor slightly and said, "There's the heartbeat." I burst into tears so hard I embarrassed myself. The baby was still there. Small. Blinking. Fighting. I should have felt relief first. I did feel it, but right behind it came something colder than fear. My husband wanted my signature more than he wanted me safe, and I still didn't know what he had done to me. The doctor said I had a subchorionic bleed and needed rest, less stress, close monitoring. She said those words to a woman whose whole life had just become a loaded weapon. I nodded like I understood. I thanked her. I accepted the discharge papers. Then I walked to my car and sat there with both hands on the steering wheel, trying to decide whether to drive home, drive to the police, or just keep driving until the road ended. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that by the time I got home, I already knew I was going to pretend, because women like me, women taught to keep peace, women who survive by minimizing pain, don't become brave in 1 hour. We become quiet first. We gather ourselves in secret. We learn while the wolves think we're still asleep. Daniel's car was already in the driveway. He opened the front door before I even reached it, his face arranged in perfect concern. "Ava." He wrapped his arms around me and I had to force my body not to flinch. "Why didn't you answer? I left early as soon as I could." Lie. His shirt smelled like Lauren's perfume. Not strongly, just enough, vanilla and cedar. The scent I had once bought her for Christmas. "I was getting discharged," I said. He pulled back, both hands on my face. "Is the baby okay?" "Yes," I thought. "Better than you deserve." I nodded. "For now." He closed his eyes like a man overwhelmed by gratitude. If I hadn't heard that call, I might have believed him. That was the sickest part. He had always known exactly what tenderness looked like. He just never meant it. He guided me to the couch, tucked a blanket over my legs, brought me water, and started talking about stress, bed rest, how I needed to let him take care of everything. Every word landed wrong now, every touch felt rehearsed. He kept glancing toward the hallway table where we usually dropped the mail, waiting, measuring, watching. Then the doorbell rang. Lauren stepped in holding a container of chicken soup and wearing a face full of sympathy. "Oh my God, Ava," she rushed toward me, eyes glossy. "I came as soon as Daniel told me." Daniel told me. Not my husband, not my friend, a pair, a unit, a secret with matching faces. She hugged me and I let her. I let the woman sleeping with my husband press her cheek to mine, while I stared past her shoulder at the family photos on the wall. One from our wedding, one from a beach trip, one from Thanksgiving, all of us smiling in front of my grandmother's fireplace. Sometimes evil doesn't look evil, sometimes it brings soup. Lauren pulled back and held my hands. "You need zero stress. Promise me you won't worry about anything practical right now." Daniel glanced at her too quickly. Then he said in the gentlest voice, "Speaking of practical stuff, I know this is bad timing, but if you're on bed rest tomorrow, we should probably sign those bank papers tonight or first thing in the morning. Just boring refinance stuff. I'll put tabs where you need to initial." There it was. Not accusation, not pressure. Just a soft little push toward the cliff. I leaned back and pressed a hand to my stomach. "Can it wait?" His expression changed for half a second. Just half. Enough for me to see what lived under the mask. Irritation. Calculation. Then he kissed my forehead. "Of course. Whatever you need." Lauren squeezed my shoulder. See, you're so loved. I almost laughed in her face. What I found that night changed the shape of my fear. I waited until Daniel fell asleep beside me with one arm over his eyes, exhausted from pretending. Then I slipped out of bed, took my phone into the bathroom, and searched my recent call log. The hospital call had lasted 7 minutes and 12 seconds. Long enough. If I couldn't trust memory, I could trust that. Then I checked the kitchen drawer where Daniel kept the boring bank papers. There were no bank logos on top. No easy summary page. No yellow sticky tabs. Just a thick packet clipped together with my name typed in the wrong font size and a legal form halfway through with the words transfer of beneficial interest. I didn't understand all of it, but I understood enough to feel my blood go cold. It wasn't a refinance. It was connected to my deed. Under that stack was a past due notice from a private lender with Daniel's name on it, and a number so large I had to read it twice. He wasn't just careless. He was drowning. I took photos of everything with my phone, my hand shaking so badly the first few came out blurred. Then I heard floorboards in the hallway. I shoved the papers back into place just as Daniel appeared in the bathroom mirror behind me. "You okay?" he asked. I nearly screamed. He stepped closer, smiling faintly. "Couldn't sleep without you." I turned too fast, nearly knocking over the soap dispenser. "Just nauseous." His eyes dropped to my phone. "You shouldn't be up." "I know." He held my gaze for one long second, then reached around me to flush a toilet no one had used as if he had come in for that. "Come back to bed," he said. I did. Because I wasn't ready yet. Because fear is smartest when it plays weak. The next morning, while Daniel was in the shower, I called the number on the notice from inside the closet, wrapped in winter coats to muffle my voice. I told the receptionist I was Ava Mercer, spouse of Daniel Mercer, and I needed confirmation that no lien had been filed against my property without my consent. The woman on the line hesitated. "I can't discuss your husband's account. It's my inherited house," I whispered. "Please." Silence. Keyboard clicks. Then she lowered her voice. "Ma'am, I can't say much, but if you did not authorize a title review last week, you need legal counsel immediately." The shower shut off. I ended the call so fast I almost dropped the phone. Daniel came into the bedroom toweling his hair dry. "Who were you talking to?" "No one." He smiled. "Ava. My OB's office," I lied. "Scheduling." He nodded, but something in his face hardened. Not anger yet. Something in his face hardened. Not anger yet. Something watchful. Like I had moved one piece on the board and he had noticed. And then my phone buzzed with a name I hadn't seen in almost a year. Nora, Daniel's younger sister. We had never been close. She lived 30 minutes away, worked too much, and had a sharp tongue that made family dinners uncomfortable. Daniel always said she liked drama. Nora always said Daniel liked control. I had chosen my husband, which meant I had quietly chosen to keep my distance from her. Her text was only 6 words, "Don't sign anything he gives you." I stared so hard at the screen it blurred. I didn't know what was coming next. I waited until Daniel left for a contractor meeting, then called Nora from the pantry with the door shut. She answered on the first ring. "Did he see my text?" she asked. "No." "Why would you send that?" "Because he's been asking questions about your deed for 2 weeks. I gripped a shelf so hard, canned beans rattled. "What questions?" "I work at Carver Title now," she said. "Not glamorous, but it pays." A file came across my desk with your property address. His name was on the inquiry, yours wasn't. I thought it was weird. Then yesterday I saw a copy of a power of attorney form with your signature and it looked wrong. My whole body went cold. He said it was a refinance. I figured. I pressed my hand over my mouth. Nora's voice softened, and I had never heard softness from her before. "Ava, listen to me. If you signed anything while medicated or overwhelmed, that matters. If you didn't sign, that matters even more." I swallowed hard. "I heard him, Nora." "Heard what?" I told her. Not every word at first, then all of it. The hospital, Lauren, the house, but the vitamins. By the time I finished, I was sitting on the pantry floor with tears sliding down my face and dust clinging to my pajama pants. Nora didn't interrupt once. When I was done, she exhaled slowly and said, "Okay." Then we stop reacting and start building. Building. That word saved me more than she knew. We met that afternoon in a diner off Route 8 where the coffee tasted burnt and no one made eye contact. Nora looked exactly like Daniel around the eyes, which bothered me until I realized her eyes carried something his never had, guilt. Not for what he had done, for not warning me sooner. She slid a folder across the table. I printed what I could without breaking policy, mostly public-facing stuff, the title inquiry, a draft transfer checklist, notes from a notary appointment that got canceled and rebooked. I opened the folder. My address stared back at me from 3 different pages. "Why are you helping me?" I asked before I could stop myself. She gave a sad little smile. "Because he did something similar to my dad before he died. Not legally, but morally. Daniel always needs a person, someone softer, someone who believes him first." She looked down at her coffee. "I should have pushed harder when he started sniffing around your paperwork." I couldn't speak. Nora looked back up. "Do you have anywhere safe to go? This is my house." That's not what I asked. I thought about that for a second too long, and she understood the answer. Before we left, she wrote a name and number on a napkin. Elena Ruiz, real estate attorney. She's mean in all the ways that help. I folded the napkin like it was a prayer, but the lies at home were getting bolder. That evening, Daniel brought me herbal tea, sat beside me on the couch, and started talking about the future in the soft, hopeful voice he used when he wanted me pliable. Nursery paint. A rocking chair for the corner by the window. Weekend trips after the baby came. Then, right in the middle of describing a crib he had supposedly bookmarked, he said, "We should really get those signatures done tomorrow." One less thing over our heads. I looked at him and wondered how many times he had practiced sounding sincere in the mirror. "I want to read everything first," I said. He laughed lightly. "You've never cared about this stuff." There it was again. Not just pressure. Rewriting me. Reducing me. Making my own caution sound unnatural. Maybe I care now. The room went very still. Then he smiled. "Good. I want you involved." He stood, kissed my forehead, and walked to the kitchen. I waited 10 seconds, then opened the voice memo app on my phone and set it recording under a folded throw pillow. Lauren arrived 20 minutes later with blueberry muffins and fake concern. I stayed on the couch with my eyes half closed while they spoke in the kitchen, thinking I might only catch fragments. I was wrong. Lauren whispered, "Why is she dragging this out?" Daniel's answer came sharp. "Because you texted too much yesterday. She's not stupid." "She's pregnant and exhausted," Lauren snapped. "That was your whole point. That doesn't mean she can't get paranoid." My stomach clenched. Lauren lowered her voice more. "Then stop acting panicked. The open house is in 3 days. Once the transfer is finalized, you can tell her whatever sad little speech you've been rehearsing. Open house." My pulse started hammering so hard I could hear it. Daniel sighed. "We're not having an open house if she's still here." "You said she'd be at her follow-up appointment." That was before she started asking questions. There was a long pause. Then I heard a sound I would know anywhere, kissing. Not a maybe. Not a misunderstanding. The muffled softness of mouths meeting in my kitchen while I lay 10 feet away, carrying the child of the man who was betraying me. Lauren laughed under her breath. "You really should have divorced her before getting me pregnant." The room tilted. Daniel swore softly. "Keep your voice down." I bit the inside of my cheek so hard I tasted blood. Pregnant. My best friend was pregnant by my husband. And I still hadn't reached the bottom of it. The next morning, I met Elena Ruiz in a glass office downtown with Nora beside me and a folder full of screenshots, photos, call logs, and the kitchen recording saved in 3 places. Elena was short, severe, and wore red lipstick like it was part of her legal strategy. She listened without blinking, then asked only precise questions. Dates. Names. Access points. Whether my signature had ever been copied for prior medical or loan documents. Whether Daniel had pressured me after previous miscarriages. Whether Lauren had independent access to the house. When I finished, Elena tapped a pen against the table. You are not crazy. That's step 1. Step 2 is we move faster than he expects. She told us the draft papers suggested an attempted transfer tied to debt restructuring. She said if a forged signature or coerced signature had been used, we could seek an emergency injunction. She said open house activity meant someone believed the property would be marketable soon. Then she looked directly at me and said, "From this moment on, you do not tell him you know. Men like this get sloppy when they think they're winning. Men like this." I hadn't even let myself use those words yet. Elena gave me a checklist. Secure your IDs. Photograph valuables. Change your email password from a device he has never touched. Stop taking anything he hands you without verifying it. And if he escalates, leave first and explain later. Nora took the list from my trembling hand. I'll help. When we walked outside, the sky had turned the color of dirty steel. I stood on the sidewalk and realized my old life was already over. Not ending. Over. You can't unhear your husband bargaining with your future. Still, going home that afternoon felt like walking back into a house fire with a glass of water. Daniel was waiting at the kitchen island with the papers laid out in neat little stacks. Perfect timing, he said. I took the liberty of marking where you need to sign. I set my purse down slowly. I'm tired. He didn't smile. So am I. That was new. The mask slipping in daylight. He pushed the top page toward me. Ava, I am trying to keep us afloat. You said you trusted me. Trusted, I repeated. His jaw flexed. What's that supposed to mean? I looked at the signature line, then up at him. It means I want to read before I sign. He braced both hands on the counter. You think I'm trying to trick you? I said nothing. He laughed once, with no humor at all. Wow. Then, just as quickly, he softened again, eyes dropping to my stomach. You know stress isn't good for the baby. There are threats that come with shouting, and there are threats that come wrapped in concern. The second kind leaves deeper bruises. I'm going upstairs, I said. He moved before I could, not fast, just enough to block me. Ava, he said quietly, do not turn me into the bad guy because you're emotional. Something inside me cracked open then. Not weakness. Clarity. I stepped back and said the only thing that kept me safe. I'm spotting again. His face changed instantly. He moved aside. Go lie down. I did. Then I locked the bathroom door and threw up. That night, while Daniel showered, I packed a small bag with my passport, social security card, grandmother's ring, prenatal records, charger, 3 changes of clothes, and the yellow onesie from the nursery drawer. I didn't know if it was sentimental or stupid, I just knew I couldn't leave it behind. At 2:14 a.m., Nora's headlights flashed once outside like we had planned. I walked out of my own house in slippers and a coat over pajamas. I didn't look back until I reached the curb. The porch light was on. The curtains in our bedroom were open half an inch. I could almost feel the house watching me leave, as if it had seen women do this before leave quietly, so they could survive loudly later. But the first major twist was waiting for me at Nora's apartment. Elena called just after sunrise. They already filed a preliminary sale packet, she said without preamble. Not completed but active. That means your husband wasn't planning to ask for your signature. He was planning to manufacture it. I sat bolt upright on Nora's couch. What? There's more, she said. The signature sample attached to the internal file appears lifted from a medical consent form. Likely from one of your prior hospital visits. My skin went cold all over. A miscarriage. He had used one of the worst days of my life as a tool. Nora was standing in the kitchen doorway when I repeated Elena's words, and I watched her face harden into something almost frightening. He copied it from grief, she said. That's a special kind of evil. Elena told us she was filing for an emergency injunction before noon, but injunctions weren't magic. Daniel could still try to move assets, push narratives, or claim I had abandoned the marital home. We needed every scrap of evidence, every text, every voicemail, every witness. Then my phone lit up with 23 missed calls. Daniel, 3 from Lauren. 1 voicemail had already arrived. I played it on speaker. Ava, where are you? Daniel's voice was strained, but not worried. Angry. You do not disappear like this. Call me back right now. If this is about the paperwork, we can discuss it. If Nora is involved, you're making a huge mistake. Nora reached for my phone. Save that. The next voicemail came an hour later. Ava, please, I'm sorry if I pushed too hard. I'm scared too. We're both under pressure. Come home and let's be adults. And the third one finally showed his real face. If you're trying to embarrass me legally, remember this works both ways. You're pregnant, unstable, and off your routine. Think very carefully before you let strangers build a story about you. Strangers. That's what he called the first people helping me. I stared at the wall after that one ended. He's going to say I'm unwell. Nora nodded. Then we make sure the truth gets there first. But even that wasn't the bottom. That afternoon, as Elena filed papers and Nora changed the passwords on every account she helped me access, Lauren sent me a text. I miss you. Please let me explain. No apology, no denial. Just that, I didn't answer. Then she sent a photo of herself sitting in my kitchen from 2 days earlier, smiling beside the vase of hydrangeas I kept on the windowsill. The caption read, "You left before hearing the full story." I almost threw the phone across the room. Instead, I handed it to Nora. She wants you emotional, Nora said. Don't give her free labor. But half an hour later, Lauren called anyway. I should have let it ring. I know that. But betrayal has a way of making you reach for pain just to confirm it's real. I answered and said nothing. Lauren exhaled shakily. Ava? Silence. I know you heard something, she said. Daniel's freaking out. I still said nothing. Then Lauren laughed once, bitter and small. Of course he is. He never knows what to do when the quiet one stops crying. My grip tightened on the phone. What do you want? I asked. Another breath. Then, to tell you, he lied to both of us. I nearly hung up. Instead, she kept talking, words tumbling out like she had been holding them behind her teeth for weeks. Daniel told her we were basically finished. Daniel said I stayed because I was scared to be alone. Daniel promised her the house sale would solve his debt and they'd start over. She was 12 weeks pregnant. He had recently stopped taking her calls too. She had found messages to another woman. She sounded angry, humiliated, desperate. I felt nothing for her. Not then. Maybe not ever. But then she said, "You know he didn't marry you for love, right?" The room disappeared. My voice came out thin. What? He knew about the house before he ever asked you out, she said. He told me. Said he met you at the fundraiser and recognized your last name from county records because his father used to do repairs in that neighborhood. He knew you inherited free and clear. He said grieving women attach hard if you make them feel safe. I closed my eyes. Lauren kept going, almost as if hurting me made confessing easier. He said you were perfect because you wanted family and stability, and he could play both. I thought he was exaggerating. I thought men say cruel things when they want to sound powerful. She paused. I didn't know he meant all of it. My voice broke. Why are you telling me this now? Because yesterday he told me if things go wrong, he'll say I'm unstable and the baby might not even be his. For one sharp second, I almost laughed. There it was, the pattern. Use, drain, deny. Then Lauren said one more thing and it hit harder than the rest. The vitamins? That was me. But not this pregnancy. The first one. He said your doctor wanted you off certain supplements because of your blood pressure, and he handed me the bottle to swap because you trusted me. Ava, I swear to God, I didn't know. I didn't know. My knees folded under me and I hit the carpet hard. Nora was beside me in an instant, taking the phone, but I had already heard enough. The first miscarriage, I had spent years blaming my body. That was the second, bigger twist, the one that didn't just break my marriage, it poisoned the whole history of it. My love story, my friendship, my grief, my losses. Suddenly, everything behind me looked staged under bad lighting. I wasn't standing in the ruins of one betrayal. I was standing in the ruins of a carefully chosen life. Nora ended the call and crouched in front of me. Look at me. I couldn't. Ava. Her voice sharpened. Look at me. I did. She held my face with both hands, exactly the way her brother used to, except with her there was no performance. He built this on your softness. That doesn't make you stupid. It makes him a predator. Do you understand me? I started crying so hard I couldn't answer. She pulled me against her and let me shake. By evening, Elena had enough to set the trap. Daniel, believing he could still control the narrative, agreed to meet at the house the next morning to clear up misunderstandings before the injunction hearing. He assumed I would come alone, or frightened, or both. He did not know Elena had instructed me to accept in writing. He did not know the county recorder had been alerted. He did not know a detective from the financial crimes unit wanted to hear him talk. He did not know Nora had copied the title inquiry trail. He did not know I had the kitchen recording, the voicemail threats, the hospital call log, photos of the documents, and Lauren's confessions saved in 4 separate places. Most important, he did not know I was done begging for the truth. I already had enough of it. The next morning, the house looked painfully beautiful in the pale spring light. My grandmother's rose bushes had just started opening near the front steps. The porch railing Daniel once fixed so lovingly was the same one he planned to sell out from under me. For a second, stepping onto that walkway, I nearly fell apart. Then Nora touched my elbow, and I remembered why I was there. Daniel opened the front door before I knocked. His expression shifted when he saw I wasn't alone. First surprise. Then annoyance, then the smooth smile. "Nora," he said. "Of course." Elena stepped forward. "Daniel Mercer, I'm Ava's counsel." His smile vanished. Inside, he tried to recover fast. "This is ridiculous." "Ava, whatever you think you heard, I heard enough," I said. He looked at me then, really looked, and something in his face tightened. Not because I sounded angry, because I sounded calm. That scared him more. Lauren was there too. I hadn't expected that. She stood in my kitchen wearing a cream sweater that belonged to me. I knew because I had bought it last winter and wondered where it went. For one wild second, I thought I might physically throw her out by the hair. But she looked terrible, mascara smudged, hollow-eyed, one hand resting over the small curve of her stomach like she didn't know whether it protected her or exposed her. Daniel turned toward her sharply. "Why are you here?" Lauren gave a joyless laugh. "Same reason everyone else is, to hear you lie." He swore under his breath. Elena set a folder on the table. "Before this goes any further, my client has filed an emergency action to block any attempted transfer or sale of the property. We also have substantial evidence of coercion, misrepresentation, and possible forgery." Daniel actually smiled then, a cruel, tiny smile. Possible. That one word told me who he really was. Even now, even cornered. He thought this was still winnable. He looked at me and softened his voice. "Ava, don't do this. You're upset? You're pregnant. You heard fragments of a conversation and let my unstable sister turn it into a fantasy." Unstable. There it was. Before I could speak, Nora took one step forward. "Say it again." Daniel ignored her. "I have spent years holding this family together, while you drift from grief to obsession to stop," I said. He did. The room went quiet enough to hear the refrigerator hum. I reached into my bag, took out my phone, and pressed play. First came his voice from the kitchen recording. Clear. Cold. "The open house is in 3 days." Then Lauren's. "You really should have divorced her before getting me pregnant." His face changed. I played the voicemail next. You're pregnant, unstable, and off your routine. Then I looked straight at him and said, should I play the hospital call too? For the first time since I had met him, Daniel had no expression ready. Lauren started crying. Elena slid another page across the table. And this, she said, is the title inquiry tied to a forged signature sample pulled from one of Ava's medical records. Daniel's jaw flexed. You can't prove I forged anything. No, Elena said coolly. But your printer can. Your metadata can. Your lender's emails can. And if Ms. Lauren Pierce would like to cooperate regarding statements she has already made. Daniel wheeled toward Lauren so fast she stepped back. You talked? She wiped her face. You were going to leave me with all of it, you stupid. Finish that sentence, Nora said softly. And I'll enjoy what happens next. He looked from one face to another and understood, finally, that every room had left him. The audience was gone. The performance meant nothing. And then he did what men like him always do when charm dies. He got honest by accident. He looked at me and snapped. What did you expect from me? You were a grieving woman in a paid-off house clinging to anyone who said the right thing. I gave you stability. I gave you years. You think that was free? I don't remember moving. I only remember the sound. My palm cracked across his face so hard it stunned us both. No one spoke. My hand burned, my heart hammered, but for the first time in years I did not feel small. Daniel touched his cheek slowly and stared at me like he had never seen me before. Free? I said, my voice shaking with fury. You used my grief. You used my body. You used my body. You used my losses. You stood beside me while I buried babies and let me blame myself. You let my best friend pour poison into my life through a smile, and you call that giving me years? His mouth opened. Don't, I said. You don't get one more lie from me. Not in this house. The detective stepped in then. He had been waiting just outside the dining room entrance after Elena's signal, listening long enough to hear what mattered. Daniel's face went white. We need to ask you some questions about the documents connected to this property, the detective said. Daniel looked at the door, at the windows, at the room, calculating exits like a trapped animal. There weren't any clean ones left. Lauren sank into a chair and covered her face. Nora stood beside me like a wall. And in that moment, with my grandmother's roses visible through the kitchen window and my baby still alive beneath my hand, everything changed. The legal part took months, because justice in real life is slower than pain, but the turning point happened that morning. Once the recordings were submitted, once the title hold was placed, once the lender backed away from the property and the notary cooperated, Daniel's version of reality started collapsing in public. The transfer failed. The sale died. His debt came into full view. His company lost 2 contracts. His family stopped answering his calls. He moved out under an order Elena made sure had teeth. Lauren gave a statement. I did not forgive her. I never will. Some wounds do not become wisdom. They become boundaries. She later moved in with her mother 2 states away and had her baby there. I heard through Elena that Daniel missed the birth because he was trying to negotiate his criminal exposure. That felt less like revenge and more like symmetry. As for me, I slept in my own house the first night after he was removed, and I left every light on. Not because I was afraid of the dark, because I wanted the house to know I was there to stay. Nora brought over groceries, changed the Wi-Fi password, and quietly fixed the back gate that had been dragging for years. We didn't talk about love or family at first. We talked about practical things, court dates, security cameras, my follow-up scans. But somewhere between replacing the locks and planting fresh basil in the kitchen window, she became the sister I had once been too loyal to see. The baby kept growing. Every ultrasound after that felt like a small rebellion, a heartbeat refusing to become part of his story. I stopped taking anything unless I opened it myself. I stopped apologizing for questions. I stopped saying maybe I'm overreacting before speaking. It turns out survival changes the grammar of a woman. By the time the divorce was finalized, the leaves had started turning gold. Daniel got what Elena called the natural consequences of arrogance. Debt, scrutiny, charges related to fraud, and no claim to the house. He asked once through his lawyer for visitation rights after the baby was born. My lawyer responded with enough documentation to bury the request before it breathed. I gave birth to a daughter in the first week of winter. Labor was long, painful, and wholly in the way hard-earned things often are. Nor was in the room holding one leg and threatening the nurse on my behalf whenever anyone said, "Just one more minute." When they placed my daughter on my chest, she opened one furious little eye like she already had opinions about the world she'd entered. I named her Grace, not because I believe grace means softness. I don't anymore. Grace, to me now, means surviving without becoming cruel. It means telling the truth after lies have lived in your house. It means keeping your tenderness and still learning where to put the knife when you must. Sometimes people ask if I'm glad Daniel forgot to hang up. That's the wrong question. He didn't forget anything important. Men like him are careless only when they think they are safe. What matters is that I heard that for 7 minutes and 12 seconds the mask slipped and I finally listened harder than I loved. If I had not heard that call, I might have signed away my home with a smile. I might have thanked my husband for taking care of me while he hollowed out my future. I might have spent the rest of my life confusing control for devotion. Instead, I learned something I wish more women were taught before heartbreak teaches it for us. The first voice you should trust is the one inside you that goes quiet when danger enters the room. Not because it's weak, because it's listening. So if you ever feel your world shift on one sentence, one look, one wrong note in a familiar voice, pay attention. Sometimes the worst moment of your life is not the thing that destroys you. Sometimes it's the thing that introduces you to the woman who can't be destroyed anymore.